We are making concrete countertops. I'm always using YouTube to learn how to do things, and so I figured it's time that I post a video. This is about my 4th time making concrete countertops, and I've learned a lot of things each time. So there's 2 different methods of making concrete countertops: the poured in place or making molds, and this is the mold method. You make your mold exactly the size you want your countertop. Right now, and then this is melamine. You buy 4x8 sheets at Home Depot or Lowe's of melamine for about $40 a sheet. And then you have to run it through your table saw to get the size that you need of your countertops. And then you have to cut the strips, the depth you want your countertop. I recommend 1.5 inches. Anything less than that would be too thin. Anything more than that would just be so heavy. So you cut your edge profiles at 1.5 inch, and then you're going to fill it up with concrete to give you a 1.5 inch depth countertop. So let's see here. I'm just cutting the strips right now. I'm going to screw them down. I'm going to caulk. So I'll show you different steps along the way. Alright, so I was pre-drilling my holes, putting my screws in for the edge profiles. I said before, make sure that you cut it the size of the countertop, but actually this bottom piece, which will become the top of your countertop, you're cutting it larger than your actual. So like my countertop is going to be 25 inches of depth, but I made this wider than 25 so that these edge profiles could sit on it. So make sure you accommodate for that. As you can see on this side, I've got some excess here. So you just want the dimension between here and here to be the depth of your countertop, which is 25 for me. This is my sink profile, so I'll be making the edges for the sink next. Usually you wouldn't want to seam in your mold because you will see that no matter what, but in this case, this is actually going to be hidden inside of a cabinet that's going to be on top of the countertop, so that will be hidden. Just make sure you got your plan and you're following all your dimensions carefully. So I know my exact length of this countertop here, 8'9", so, and then 25 inches that way. So make sure you're measuring carefully. So this countertop is going to go here, and I'm going to make it very close to where it's going because it's going to be very heavy. And the bottom becomes the top. So this will be, you'll flip the countertop out and it'll be like that. So when you are laying things out like your sink, it's, keeping that in mind. And I've done this before and I just did it again, where I'm like putting the sink where it's gonna go, thinking, I'm just gonna pick this up and put it there, but really you're flipping it over. So my sink isn't here, it's over here. So that's just something to keep in mind. Everything is reversed for your flip. Alright, so we're placing the sink. This will be the back side of the countertop, and we put the edge profiles, like on the outside of the line, but now we're going on this side because this will be the concrete here. So the exact dimensions of the sink I drew on, and now this will be on this side of the line. And you really want to use a square everything. Make sure that this is perfect square, because then it'll go right up against the sink. So if you've got some lines that aren't exactly lined up, you'll see that later on. So be very careful, get your measurements exact. Bring a tape measure along here, make sure that this stays, and make sure it's all square. Alright, so since the concrete will be in here, you want this to be a nice, smooth, rounded corner for your sink. You want to really pay special close attention around your sink because that is the spot you'll be looking at the most. So in this spot, that's going to be where the sink is. Concrete is everywhere else. You can see I'm pre-drilling the holes and then keeping them off the edges. You want to be really in control of your drill so you don't split this. I did this on purpose to show you what could happen. Alright, and then also, like, you can see that screw is a little high too. You don't want that either because you're going to be cutting across the top, screeding the concrete. You don't want that to get in the way. So you want it to be pretty smooth, but you just don't want to mess up like that. So keep in control, like, that's a great one there. And then just keep off the edges. Alright, next thing is our holes for the faucet, soap. I've got an air button for the garbage disposal. They sell silicone plugs that you can use for your little sink holes. I've gone to a specialty concrete store for concrete countertops and they didn't even have them, so it's something you'd have to order special. They're probably kind of expensive. So I rigged it my own with these, little paint rollers. I cut one 6-inch one into 3 pieces, and then I use saran wrap to compress and wrap them to the depth that I need. So the faucet one is a little bit wider, and then the soap one is skinnier. So I squeeze it tight with saran wrap. I know I'm so smart. So you can get crafty. We are gonna have to really clean this mold up really well. So vacuum. I've got a wet dry vac. I'm gonna wipe it with a rag, and then I'm gonna get siliconing. I did want to add a couple things. I'm gonna be making 2 at the same time. That one is for that wall over there, and as you see, it runs into the wall there, and then it'll run into the oven there, and then there'll be one other section on the other side of the oven. But for the island floating, I'm gonna do a waterfall edge of also concrete countertop. So the island itself, the cabinets are 5 feet, but I've made the top 5 foot 3 inches because the thickness is 1.5 inches. So we'll have 1.5 inches of countertop going down on either side. So you just wanna make sure you're accommodating for whatever edge or side profiles you're gonna do. And also, as I've been cutting and placing these, I've been sanding a little bit, smoothing it out, just so we get a good, connection there. You'll be amazed at how perfect you have to make your mold. Everything ends up showing up in this concrete. So just make sure you're sanding, and then I wipe it off with a towel, and then I'm also going to be vacuuming and wiping it again. All right, it's the next day. The black silicone has cured. We're working on rebar. This is 1/4 inch threaded rod. You can buy it at Home Depot or Lowe's in the electric department. They actually sell it in 2 different departments. There's one department where they sell it in shorter pieces and it's very expensive, but if you get it in the electric department in the 8-foot pieces, it's very cheap. And then you're gonna use your grinder. You're gonna measure. You wanna keep the rebar 1 inch off the sides, on both sides. And then when you are buying this rebar, just buy more than you think you need because you really go through it and you don't want to run out. And then I'm going to work on the next piece, and then we're going to suspend the rebar using a thin gauge wire. Alright, I measured and then used a calculator to divide up the spacing for the rebar. I pre-drilled holes and then put little roofing nails in here that I could use to wire the rebar to. So I'm going to do the rebar next. It isn't unheard of that the rebar could ghost through. You could slightly see it on the surface. That would be if you don't wire it in, and this will be the first time that I'm wiring it in because it's something I've learned. So I'm hoping that we won't see any ghosting, but just in case we do see ghosting, that's why I wanted to measure and make sure the spacing is perfect. You don't want wonky rebar in case you are slightly seeing a shadow of it through the concrete. You want a nice grid. It's looking like this. I also cleaned the mold off again before doing all the rebar, but I'll have to do it again too. But you just want to get all the dust and everything out. I'm just using this hanger wire like that. Then I'm going to pound these nails all the way flat so that it'll be easy to scrape the concrete on the top. Alright, we have suspension of our rebar. I did run out of wire, so I just made sure that all these cross ones were wired, and then I was able to lay some other ones just on top of those, so those will keep them suspended. Here's our sink, our island, all the rebar wired up. Okay, and we'll be using the Quickcrete countertop mix. You absolutely cannot use Quikrete regular concrete at the hardware store. It has to be the countertop mix. Other concrete mixes have a lot of big aggregate in it, rocks. This doesn't have any of that. It's super fine, and there's plasticizers in this. Plasticizers in concrete lets you have a more liquidy mix. Usually with concrete you have to have a very dry mix because that makes it more strong. The more water you add as you're mixing concrete weakens it. This one with plasticizers, you can have a more liquidy, strong mix, so it'll flow in much more watery and be very strong. Alright, so we're just about to pour. Lucky me, I have a whole house under construction, so crappy floor, obviously, and I didn't want it to be too bad, so I'm taking some precaution. If you're doing this elsewhere, just make sure you're close enough to where the countertops are going in the end, because they are heavy. I've done them in the garage that was adjacent to a kitchen before, or doing something right outside the door and bringing the wheelbarrow in, or the mixer in. Cement mixer is very handy. I hate mixing concrete otherwise, so this is just a little mixer. You can get one at Harbor Freight for $200. Make sure you got your concrete gloves. Also, the molds are lifted the way they are because you need to vibrate the molds after you pour the concrete. So you need to be able to access underneath, and I'm going to be able to slide these boards around to be able to vibrate that spot, under there as well. So, and I'm gonna, I've used a palm sander that vibrates as a good tool to vibrate the molds. I'm gonna do 2 hammers banging on it, and you gotta really vibrate it a ton. I'm gonna also add these fibers as I'm mixing the concrete. I'm just gonna separate these up and toss those in. You don't have to do too much, but then these extra fibers add some strength to your concrete mix. As far as where to get this stuff, I've gone to a specialty concrete store and gotten things like these fibers, order it online. As far as this Quikrete, they have different deals with different hardware stores, so you could be on their website and they're not going to ship it to you for some reason. You have to find a place near you. So here in Hawaii, Sears has some deal with them, so I was able to special order it through Sears, wait a month to get it. In Nashville, there was a specialty concrete store that had it, that I was able to just go and pick it up, which is cool. Also, this is going to be a very liquidy mix, so you need to make sure your molds are very level. So yeah, we're going to get pouring here. It's still a little bit on the dry side. You can slowly be adding water. You want to make sure that it's very sideways, your mixer. You want the concrete to be really falling on itself. If you have it just positioned like this, it's just going to spin around and not really mix. So you want to try to get it as much sideways as you can, so it's falling on itself and really mixing up. It's still a little bit on the dry side. If this was a regular concrete, that would already be too wet, but with the plasticizers in this, you can get it to be a little bit more gooey, and I'm going to start adding the fibers. It's pretty good. Alright, it's the next day. We gotta be very quiet because they're sleeping. See what we're working with here. Looks good. Alright, got our little spray bottle here. Just gonna add some moisture. So the sizes of these, this one right here is about 3 foot by 5 foot. And then that one was about 9 foot by 2 foot, and this was exactly 6 of these 80-pound bags. Around. I also did some, I just had a really big paint scraper, sort of like a trowel, and then just kind of smoothed out. This is the bottom, And you know, when you're sitting at the bar here, you know, it's just natural to kind of like feel the underside of your countertop. So it's good to do a little bit of troweling just to kind of smooth it out, otherwise it'll be, you know, super rough. And then also the smoothness will be good for, you know, it's going to be sitting on cabinets, so try to like smooth it out so it's levelly sitting. One issue I saw, so this one looks perfect as far as like, you know, the rebar is embedded. On this one, some of the rebar was just, you know, probably wired so tight to the edges and it wouldn't let it drop down. So that's no bueno. Yeah, it's not good. So that rebar is really not going to be doing much at all since it's sticking out. And I don't really know what to say there because I did it all the same, and that one turned out perfect, and then this one just had that rebar issue. So maybe while I was working, you know, put another hand to help, you know, I could have just cut that wire and just like make sure I really like sunk that one down better. That's the only issue. All right, I'll be just misting these and then covering them back up. All right, we're demolding. I am seeing a few, you know, pinholes like that. That means I did not vibrate the mold enough. It should be all like perfectly smooth. But you can come back with a slurry of concrete mix and fill in your pinholes, but that's why you want to just vibrate the mold like crazy. You know, just working as one person, I didn't really have the time to jump on that as quickly as I could have. Got our nice holes for the sink and everything. I'm definitely very anxious to see the top side. That will be probably in the next couple days. I just wanted to show you a step. You know, we're removing the screws and the rebar nails, and the rebar nails are coming out really nicely just because they were pre-drilled, so they're just sliding out. And then when you take off the edge, you know, we've got the silicone on there, so it does still want to stick. You never want to, you know, stick your screwdriver in this way because you could damage the countertop. So you want to really come in as much from like the bottom and sides as possible and just kind of pull it up and break that silicone, and then just gently pull it away and out, up. And you're not going to reuse these or anything, so you know, when it comes to like taking the sink part out, you are really chiseling away a lot of the wood here, but yeah, just pulling it out and revealing your edges. So, all right, so you want to go along the edges with a diamond sander. If you don't have that, I've just been using regular sandpaper. I can't find my diamond sander. And then the other awesome trick is, you know, a lot of times you have pieces like this that like off the side of your mold with that rough concrete, and you can use that as a good filing tool. Sometimes like along this edge I had kind of like a high part right there, so you can use something like this and just kind of grind that down. It does a great job at smoothing things out. Once you get like a ridge off, you can go over with some finer sandpaper. But yeah, anywhere you have a super rough spot, you can use that trick, and then just kind of smooth out the edges. You don't want anything sharp.